evening, everyone. All 5 of the expected candidates are here this evening. My name is Terry Kasparis. I'm the chair of the Blanco County Democratic Party. And this candidate forum is being sponsored by the Hill Country Democratic Coalition, which includes all of the Hill Country counties that are included in the Congressional District 21. So welcome to our candidates and welcome to all of the guests who've joined us. So a couple of ground rules here. We are asking that everyone stay muted except for the candidates. We ask the candidates to all stay unmuted. We have a couple of people helping tonight. First is Laura Bray, who is the chair of the Kendall County Democrats. She is our Zoom administrator this evening. And Suzanne Perkins, who is a part of the Blanco County Democratic Party. She is our voter outreach coordinator, and she is our timekeeper. So the run of show here tonight is we have drawn names for speaking order of each of the candidates. And so if the candidates will note the following, the first speaker will be Sharif Gassis. The second will be David Anderson. The third will be Coy Branscombe. The fourth will be Ricardo Villarreal. And the fifth will be Claudia Zapata. So each candidate is going to have 3 minutes in turn to introduce themselves and their campaign. After each candidate has done their introduction, we have 4 prepared questions that will be asked of each of the candidates and also in turn. However, we will start person number 2 or candidate number 2, David Anderson, will be the first to answer the first question. And when we get to the third question, Coy Branscombe, number 3, will be the first to answer that question. So we'll rotate in that manner to try to make it a little bit more balanced. This will be a fast-paced event tonight with 5 candidates. We want to make sure that each of them has adequate time. And we also want to make sure that we get through this in a reasonable amount of time. This should last about an hour and a half. And if we have the opportunity within an hour and a half to take some questions from the chat, we will do that, but we'll have to see how that goes. So I think that's pretty much it for the introduction. I'm very excited to be here, very excited to have our candidates. And one last thing. We're going to give each of the candidates a 15-second warning before your time is up. And Suzanne will ring a bell, and if we're unable to hear the bell, she will break in and say 15 seconds. And at the end, she will say stop. So we hope everybody can work with that guideline, just so that it's fair for everybody. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and start, and I would like to invite Sharif Gassis to introduce himself.
Perfect. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Thank you, Bernie area Democrats, the Hill Country Coalition Democrats. My name is Sharif Gassis. I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. I went to James Madison High School, which is just inside the district. Then I graduated and went to Incarnate University, or the University of Incarnate in Alma Heights, also in the district. And then I transferred to Texas State to pursue a track and field career, an Olympic hopeful. That's also in the district, Texas State, for the most part. I've been living in San Marcos since I went to college, and I work in downtown Austin in the finance field. Some of my credentials for running for Congress, I was the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee in San Marcos for 2 years. And I currently serve as the chairman for the San Marcos Police Department Training Committee. And I do also serve on the Parks and Recreation Board in San Marcos. So I have a lot of experience not just being in committees, but running the committees also, which is something that a lot of things are done in Congress and committees. Some of my major points that I want to hit is the first one would be infrastructure. The entire Austin-San Antonio corridor, as well as the Hill Country, Bernie, Kerrville, Fredericksburg, are all growing exponentially. So we need a lot of federal funds to come back to the cities around the Hill Country to be able to expand infrastructure. Also strengthen the middle class with the Build Back Better plan. It's going to have to be broken up into pieces, but I think we can pass it and provide some healthcare relief, childcare relief, and also it's very important that we fight back against SB 8. So if we need to codify Roe v. Wade. More than likely, the Supreme Court is going to overturn Roe v. Wade in the summer, so we need to be vigilant about that. And then we also have to fight for voting rights, which are under pressure all over the country, and especially in Texas. So thank you very much again for listening, and I'll yield back to the second candidate, Lotan.
Thank you very much, Sharif. Second candidate is David Anderson. Welcome, David.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today. So my name is David Anderson. I'm running for Texas 21st Congressional District. I'm born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. To two disabled parents. Both my parents. My mom was disabled. She had a stroke while she was teaching her third grade class, and my dad had COPD from secondhand smoke. So that sold me why we need the right people in office. I went to the local high school here, Sam Houston High School, on the east side of San Antonio. After high school, I went to go play basketball at Texas State University. I played 2 years as a walk-on. Then after I realized I wasn't gonna make it to the NBA or make it to the Olympics, I decided to focus on my studies. After college, I started a nonprofit called Divine Equality, which helps people with rent assistance, food assistance, and clothing drives on the east side and west side, and south side of San Antonio. We're looking to branch out to other parts of Texas because we know other parts of Texas will benefit from our nonprofit. I was also the secretary for Polycythemia Cancer Research Society. That started in New Braunfels, Texas, and we now got a chapter in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and California. So I'm very proud of that. And I'm also the former board of advisors for Southern Careers Institute, where from 2019 through 2020, I helped wrote their business curriculum. My two main platforms that I'm running on is a better education system and an expansion of Medicaid and Medicare. Right now, the United States is one of the lowest education systems in the world. And that's something that shouldn't have happened. We have too much money, too much resources, and too much influence for our kids to graduate high school reading at an 8th grade level. We need an overhaul of the education system so we can see what the problem is and fix it. And when it came to Medicare and Medicaid expansion, too many Americans are going into debt over medical bills. That's something that has never happened in this country. We have too many resources for somebody going in debt over a simple doctor visit. So we need to find some way to extend it to offer a Medicaid and either offer Medicaid and Medicare on the state level and federal levels to more people, so we can have better people, so we got better health insurance across the country. And my name is David Anderson, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you, David. All right, so the next candidate is Coy Branscombe. Welcome, Coy.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. As he said, my name is Coy Branscombe, and I'm running for Congress in Texas District 21. I grew up in Dripping Springs, which is the gateway to the Hill Country, and I'm very fond of all of the natural beauty that we have to offer here. And I'm running for Congress with a unique set of lived experiences that have prepared me to address the needs of my neighbors in Texas 21. As a former high school teacher, I helped shape minds of future world leaders, and I felt the pain of smiling through my third double in a row, serving tables, going to bed at night with my feet throbbing. I've experienced firsthand the effects the work done in Congress has on Americans, and I am confident that we deserve better. I'm here to serve my community and bring power back to the voices of Texas 21, working together with you to make the improvements needed here at home, across the country, and globally as leaders on the world stage. And some people are going to argue that someone with my resume has no business running for Congress, that I lack experience that a seasoned politician might have. And they're right. I am not a politician, and I have never run for office or worked in government, but I don't lack experience. I'm bringing new experiences to Congress, which, excuse me, but we've been conditioned to believe that a certain pedigree is needed to run for office, flashy credentials, Ivy League schooling, and of course, knowing the right people. But now we're being represented by politicians who don't live in the district, who don't care about the district, and who don't have the same priorities as the constituents that they pretend to serve. I have a lifetime of experience being a resident of this community. And when you send me to Congress, I'm going to bring your voices with me. And I'm going to need your help to fight for 3 big priorities that I have. The first being redefining education funding. We have to move away from standardized testing. There is nothing standard about the way kids learn. And as a former teacher, I can tell you that we are putting them into the boxes that make them, it conditions them to become mindless, subservient workers instead of curious, free thinkers. And that has to change. So I'm calling on us to abolish these standardized testings. I took the TAS and the TAX and the STAR test, and I can tell you from 3 different versions, I learned not a damn thing. Another priority for me is legalizing and decriminalizing marijuana. It is economically beneficial to us in ways that we can't even fathom yet, because we're not taking the bold leadership that it's required to make these
15 seconds.
Thank you. And then the last thing is environmental protections. Climate change is real. We are a district that relies heavily on our beauty to stay prominent so that we can thrive on ecotourism. And so climate action is my main priority. Thank you. Woo.
Thank you, Coy. Appreciate it. All right, next up is Ricardo Villarreal. Ricardo?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ricardo Villarreal. I was born and raised in Laredo. My mother's a Mexican immigrant. My father was a farmer. I spent plenty of time at the ranch growing up until I graduated from high school. I went to medical school in Guadalajara, where I practiced for a couple of years, one of those years being in social service to a small rural community of less than 300 people. So that's my experience with rural healthcare. After practicing a couple of years, I came back to San Antonio and got an MBA in healthcare administration from Our Lady of the Lake. I joined the Army Reserve, where I served for 8 years as a health services officer. And during that time frame, I was mobilized to Fort Hood. So I had plenty of opportunities to travel back and forth through Highway 281 for the whole year that I was stationed there. Every weekend, I came back home and took that road up and down all the way to Killeen. When I wasn't doing the Army Reserve, I also worked in hospitals as patient safety, quality, and process improvement programs. I've been from an analyst to the director of different hospitals within here in San Antonio as a consultant in South Texas hospitals and nursing homes. And I also worked at Hill Country Memorial Hospital for about 6 months as the quality director there. In the last couple of years, I actually went back to school. Thanks to the GI Bill, I went to our Golden Gate University to get a second master's in leadership. And then after that, I went to UC Berkeley for public policy, and I'm working on my 4th master's public leadership from University of San Francisco. The reason I'm running is quite clear. Chip Roy is very preoccupied for his party and what they believe in, and not so much about our community needs, our district needs. That's why, for me, some of the things that I want to focus on is healthcare access. There's over 90,000 people within our district that do not have healthcare insurance, and I want to be able to provide that for them, or be able to alleviate some of that stress on them. The second thing I want to make sure that I get accomplished is to work with the infrastructure law that just got passed, and be able to get the funding that we require so that we're able to provide broadband internet access, improve rural roadways, and have additional electrical vehicle charging stations within our district, and of course all the jobs that come
15
with it.
seconds.
Lastly, as a veteran, and that's my third priority, making sure that we have all the benefits and services that are needed by our veterans. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ricardo. And Claudia Zapata. Welcome, Claudia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Claudia Zapata, and I too am one of the candidates running in Texas's 21st Congressional District against Chip Roy. I come from a long line of hardworking Tejanos and Tejanas who have instilled in me the core values of hard work, family, and taking care of others. And I hope to honor those values and treat those values with as much respect as I can in the way that I govern, hopefully as your future Congresswoman. I'm currently a community organizer. I was a former legislative aide for House District 46 at the Texas Capitol for the 84th and 85th legislative sessions, where I worked to develop policy specifically for the Health and Human Services Committee. And then that worked out very well, because for the next 4 years after I graduated from UT Austin in 2017, I worked for the Texas Health and Human Services Commission as a workforce and budget analyst. In my duty at that time, I had to work not only with the Texas legislator, but with our internal and external stakeholders who help create livable situations and look into abuse, neglect, and exploitation cases for those that are living in assisted living facilities, nursing facilities, childcare, residential and commercial, and foster care and state hospitals as well. And I pride myself on being able to look at the resources that we currently have in existing infrastructure and using it in creative and new ways. I am fighting for the poorest of us within these rural communities in TX21. I am fighting for food accessibility. Over 98% of the 21st Congressional District is located within USDA-defined food deserts, meaning people don't live within 20 miles of a grocery store. I am also fighting for universal health care, but not just access to insurance. We also need to make sure that we increase the amount of routine and preventative healthcare clinics that exist within the district. And then lastly, I am fighting for clean land, air, and water. Because these are crucial, necessary elements that we need to survive. And currently they are being exploited, and we have private corporations coming in and purchasing our cheap rural land and using it to build concrete mining, cement mining, limestone mining, and doing so while polluting our air
15
and our
seconds.
water. I hope that I'm able to answer all of your questions sufficiently, and I look forward to the rest of this forum. Thank you so much.
Claudia. Well, I must say I'm very honored to be here this evening with these candidates. I mean, the diversity that they represent is really amazing, and I think speaks very well for the Democratic Party. But also the diversity of the issues that they have raised tonight. So let's get into it a little bit. We're going to go to the first question. And so David Anderson, you will have the opportunity to answer this question first.
All right.
A viable campaign against Republican incumbent Chip Roy is going to have a high price tag. Roy already has a war chest in the backing of the national Republicans. How will your campaign be funded? And do you have a substantial portion of those resources in hand or readily available after the primary?
Thanks so much. Great question. So right now, my campaign is self-funded. I'm just blessed to have the money to self-fund my campaign to this point and beyond. But most of my resources, I've talked to the Collective PAC. I talked to Nina Turner. I talked to Wendy Davis, Nancy Pelosi, and all them. All of them said the same thing. They will not fund nobody or get involved into this campaign into the general. Most of the Democratic PACs already told me if we will not get involved into your campaign into the general. So so with that being said, no matter what one of us candidates wins the general election, the primary, we're going to have a lot of money and a lot of resources from these Collective PAC, the Latino Victory Fund, Novo, Pro-Choice, all these PACs are just waiting for the person to win the general. And then they're going to start, the primary, and then they're going to start sending money down here and resources that we need to actually put up a good fight against your boy.
Okay, thank you, David. So Coy, the question comes to you next. And in general, the voters want to know how you're going to fund your campaign, and are you going to be able to compete against Roy financially?
Thank you. I look at contributions less as donations and more of as investments. You're investing in us to then produce results for you that make your daily lives better. And so those people that are funding your campaigns are the ones that you're going to have to pay back once you're in office. So we are doing only small dollar donations, grassroots fundraising, 100%. I didn't launch my campaign until pretty late into last year. We launched at the end of October, and that was mostly off of just me begging friends and family for startup money. But since then, we are almost to 1,000 individual small dollar donations. And considering how tired everybody is and how strapped we are for cash, because this has been a hell of a 3 years, I'm really proud of how much we've been able to fundraise in this primary alone. Often it's $1 donations, $3 donations that people are giving out of their last free dollars. And I know that we can take that momentum into the general, of course, with any ethical support that we can get from the Democratic establishment. Although I will tell you again, I don't want to owe anybody but you. So long story short, this is going to be a frugal campaign, but I prefer it that way. But we will raise the money that we need to beat Chip Roy, and I am not at all concerned about that.
Ricardo, campaign financing.
So I have $10,000 cash on hand in my campaign, while Chip Roy has $1,052,000 in his cash on hand for his campaign. I like those odds for a lot of reasons, because that builds a lot of overconfidence. And I think what Chip is not acknowledging or isn't aware is that everybody's waiting to put in their money until we have somebody in the general election. As David mentioned before, I've also talked to other PACs, even veteran PACs that have told me, hold on, wait until the runoff, hold on, wait until the general. We will support you. We just want to make sure that the field is narrowed down. Even my own sources in terms of donors, I've kind of throttled back. And the reason for that is I've self-financed most of the campaign. I want to say about 85, if not 90% of the campaign. And the reason for that is because I'm using my money wisely. I could be putting bumper stickers left and right, but that's not going to serve a purpose. What we need is to get people out to vote, not just Democrats. We need moderates and some Republicans to vote for us. And the best way to do it is to do it in person. It doesn't matter if you have $10 million against Chip Roy. It's about getting people out to vote. And I think I can get enough financing to be able to provide the services and the different types of events to be able to bring out those constituents out to vote in November.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Claudia.
Well, in terms of campaign viability being related to fundraising, I think there are fundamental issues with that, and we must address campaign finance reform in order to make sure that we are keeping dark money, super PAC money, and corporate PAC money out of campaigns, because that's how people like Chip Roy are able to sit on millions and millions of dollars in order to fund their campaign. I myself have raised the most amount of money, almost nearly $30,000, with majority of that, only $2,000 I put in from myself, but the rest of that, almost $28,000 has been raised by grassroots small dollar donors. Out of all of the candidates present here at this forum today, I have raised the most amount of money, with majority of that, like I said, being from the small dollar grassroots donations. I feel very confident that I will start to see more donations come in. I have recently received the endorsement of the Texas AFL-CIO, and I'm currently in works with them to be able to host different events and really talk about workforce and the importance of labor unionizing and workforce education within TX21. And so I think that there are, like I said, two-part answers to this question. One, campaign finance reform, and two, I feel confident that we're able to sustain and increase the amount of money that I currently have via these grassroots donations because of the endorsements that I have received and endorsements that I have yet to announce just yet. And so I'm very hopeful that we can strategically use the funds that we have to target those that have a lower propensity turnout level. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. And so, Sharif, you get the last crack at this question about campaign financing.
Appreciate it, Terry. I'm still driving, guys, so that's why at times I'm cutting out a little bit. So back in 2016, I ran for mayor in San Marcos, and like this race right now, it was mostly self-funded. And one of my friends did some financial analysis after the race, and he told me how some of my opponents were spending upwards to $50 to $100 per vote that they got in the election, and I spent only $2 per every vote. The main thing about running a campaign is not necessarily how much money you're going to have. It's about being efficient, being targeted. Anybody that thinks you're going to run a campaign against Chip Roy based on money alone, he already has $1 million in the bank. So we have to find ways to reach voters in very efficient and targeted ways. There's a lot of disenfranchised voters in Texas 21 that are just waiting for a viable candidate to support. And I believe that can be that candidate. And it's just a matter of finding the way to reach them without necessarily spending, hundreds of thousands on TV ads or radio ads, which I'm sure that's what Chip Roy is going to end up trying to do. So that's my strategy right now, is reaching individual voters and then being very strategic of where I'm spending the money and when I'm allocating to different sources like mailers or yard signs, big signs you put on highways. Because again, all that stuff takes a lot of money, and we're not going to compete with Chip Roy in that sense.
Okay.
I think that's about it.
Thank you, Sharif. Thank you. Just a word before we go to the next question. My crystal ball says we're going to have time for one, maybe two questions from the audience. So if you have a question, please enter it into chat, and we will select, as I said, one or two. If you don't enter questions in chat, then I'm gonna have to ask a question, and you're already hearing enough from me tonight. So help me out here. So the next question, and Coy Branscombe will start the answers on this. What is your reaction to the UN report that says the planet is in a dangerous state, a code red for humanity?
Look outside. The shelves are bare in grocery stores, and everybody's holding their breath to see what the next 48 hours is going to look like in Texas. And it's not about the heat. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine living in Texas where we were worried about the power grid failing us in the winter. I went to school in the Midwest, and that was my first real experience with snow. And I used to joke about wearing gym shorts and flip-flops on Christmas Day. Climate change is a very real issue. It is, in my opinion, the number one issue that we must address, because what good is all of this other legislation, Build Back Better, bipartisan infrastructure bill, if we are just investing in a world that's going to be destroyed by our inaction on climate change. Moving into Congress, that is my number one priority. I do support bold legislation like the Green New Deal. There is no excuse or no compromise on climate change. And we must listen to the scientists on this and follow their advice to a T. Anything else is a failure.
Thank you. Thank you, Coy. Ricardo. So Code Red for Humanity.
That's not news to me. I saw that firsthand when my dad had droughts, had to sell cattle. When there was floods, he had to bulldoze fields of corn, avocados, tomatoes, all these different plants. It's not something that, whether it's real or not, I've seen it firsthand. It's what we do about it. We have to go into renewables. We need to make sure that reduce our energy consumption, that we reduce our green gas, our carbon emissions. It's about saving water. It's about treating the environment as a very, very short demand kind of resource. We need to be able to make sure that what we have, we get the most out of it, and we don't waste anything. We have a lot of oil here, but we also have a lot of wind. We have a lot of solar energy, and we have a lot of things here in Texas. And the thing that we need to do is transfer from fossil fuels to renewables. And I think that that's something that we're going to be doing going down the line. I know that with the infrastructure law, that there's a push for electric vehicles being put out and the network being done. And also to repair some of the things that we've done in terms of some of the pollution remediation. That's something that we need to be doing. And most important of all is make sure that we have the EPA doing their job and is well funded and is not being held back, and that we have the
15
right
seconds.
we have the right amount of restrictions on anything that we do with pollution and any resources that we take from our environments. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia, what's your take?
I agree with the former two candidates. It is not a matter of whether or not climate change is real. It is real, and it's happening, and it's affecting us. The way that I feel that we should approach the discussions around climate change is by talking about the workforce. Currently, we have a lot of small and mid-sized farmers whose livelihoods and production are being hurt by the effects of climate change. In addition to that, I also understand, because I grew up in a border town, that not many opportunities exist for those who work on these oil refineries or these oil rigs. And so a lot of these individuals that are historically excluded will take these jobs, not because they want to work, for oil and gas directly, but more so because it's a way for them to put food on their table and feed their families. So I believe that we should be fighting for a Green New Deal that prioritizes the transition of oil and rig gas workers to work on our renewable resources and renewable energy resources. We need to make sure that we prioritize, train, and heavily pay those individuals in order to help these oil and gas companies really hurt. And the way that we hurt them is by taking away their workforce. In addition to that, I am all for creating a civilian climate corps, and that would intentionally create millions of federal good-paying union-backed jobs to help create better infrastructure, green infrastructure throughout the entire United States. And I am proud to have the endorsement of Sunrise Movement Austin, Texas, which is a national organization that fights for and advocates for climate change.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. All right, Sharif.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. So, part of being a congressman is understanding what a congressman actually does. The Build Back Better plan has a lot of green initiatives in it. So that's why it was being pushed really, really strong by the Biden administration. Now, the Green New Deal right now, as it stands, it hasn't been talked about for about 3 or 4 years because right now it's dead on arrival. That's why we had to put things into the Build Back Better plan, because we have to be able to legislate effectively to be able to pass initiatives that will help people out. Now, the Build Back Better plan had a lot of things, such as the charging ports for electric vehicles in rural communities like Kerrville, Fredericksburg. When people are taking a road trip, they want to be able to take their electric vehicle out there, so that helps out the environment. Also, Texas right now is the #1 state in the entire country in green initiatives. So we are producing green energy. We just have to do more of it. And as a congressman, you have to be able to bring federal dollars back to your district to have more solar farms and more wind farms, things that will actually help out your constituents. So that's why, again, I'm harping really hard on the Build Back Better plan, because that's a workable piece of legislation that we just need to tweak a little bit, and then we'll be able to deliver results for our constituents back home.
Thank you. And so, David, you have the last take on this question.
So I do agree with my fellow candidates to a certain extent. We do need more reusable energy. We do need more solar windmills, solar panels. But at the end of the day, if you talk to most, like I have talked with some Republicans, most Republicans will agree with you that some states need to change. But the only way most of these are going to change is if we get rid of the oil rigs. We gotta have a place. We gotta have a place where we can send their workers to. Like, I just can't cut nobody's job out, and now this man or this woman can't feed their family. Where are they gonna go after we cut these jobs out? It needs to be some type of plan in place. Like, hey, if we shut down these oil rigs, these people automatically got jobs over here that pay the same amount of rate. And if we can do that, if we can promise these people that work on the oil rigs, people that work at the coal plants, that hey, if we close them down, we will give you the same amount of pay, and you can move your 401k over, you can move your health benefits over to these jobs. Most of them will agree with us, because of right now, if we're talking about closing down a lot of stuff, we're gonna be putting a lot of people out of jobs, and that's something we're gonna be back to square one. We made the environment better, but now we got moms and dads that can't provide for their families. So now, provide their families. So now, I would agree to close down the fossil fuel plants, close down the coal plants, close down the oil. Close down oil. Sea oil rigs that's polluting the sea. But as soon as you close them down, it needs to be a job placement program to put these people back.
15 seconds.
To put these people back at the same pay that they get at their last job had it.
Okay, thank you,
And
David.
Terry, there's been several good questions posted in the chat, so just
Yes,
have a
thank
look.
you. Yeah, thank you, Laura. I see them. In fact, Susan Dollar had a question that we anticipated, so we're going to go to that next. And Ricardo, that you will have the first answer on this question.
Shoot.
What ideas do you have about an immigration plan that would work, especially related to the southern border?
That's it. It's a great question. I have a subject matter expert. My wife's an immigration judge, and I grew up in Laredo, so I know a little bit. And of course, my mom's a Mexican immigrant. There's a lot of different things that we can do in terms of immigration, starting with providing a pathway to citizenship for those that are eligible for DACA, Deferred Action for Child Arrivals. So that's the first step. Making sure that there's a pathway, whether it's providing residency, and then further down the line, providing citizenship, whether it's 2 years, 5 years down the line, that they are on that line to be able to become US citizens. The second part, or the follow-up to those DACA kids, is DAPA, the parents, those are also the ones that are coming here and already here and have lived and provided valuable things to the country. And they need a pathway as well. In terms of how we do it, there's different ways. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm very eager to work with Republicans on, is that kind of negotiate that in terms with border security, is ensure that there's a right way of coming into this country, and that we have established something that's feasible and reasonable in terms of a waiting line, in terms of how long we have to have immigrants wait before they become citizens. We can't have people that are here for 20 years and not be able to have citizenship or residency, or have to be scared of being deported. That's something that we need to do.
15 seconds.
So with working with Republicans, I think I'd be able to negotiate that, providing border security and an immigration pathway for different communities within our country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. Claudia.
So I believe that we need a complete overhaul of our inhumane immigration system to mitigate the humanitarian crisis at the border that has been exacerbated by COVID-19 and the climate crisis. I recommend that we begin by rescinding Title 42, ending family separation, ending for-profit detention center contracts, upholding domestic and international asylum laws, because not many know that we actually do have domestic and international asylum laws that would help mitigate a lot of the issues that we have at the border, but we're just currently violating them. Providing funding to expedite asylum cases, creating an independent oversight commission of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency, and expanding protections for temporary and unauthorized workers. We must also develop a roadmap to citizenship that is welcoming and does not inundate future citizens with prohibitive costs, fees, and penalties. In addition to this, as a previous workforce analyst, I also know that we must enact legislation that prioritizes and expedites the passage of work visas, so that we do have workers that are able to come in, provide for the economy legally, and take home money as well that they have earned. So it's a win-win situation, especially in a district where we do have a lot of mid and small sized farming. And so this is why I believe we need to address this holistically at the border. I do want to say one thing, that I believe that when we discuss the border, we do a disservice when we talk about it in only terms of immigration reform. The border is so much more than that. And additionally, it is a very common Republican talking point that has been nationalized. So we cannot feed into that trap as well.
All right, thank you. Sharif.
Yeah, so immigration is going to be Chip Roy's big time issue that he's going to try and make it. And so I have a comprehensive plan that I'm working on, but you have to have buy-in from all the parties involved, not just the Border Patrol, not just the Department of Homeland Security, but also the countries that a lot of the immigrants are coming from. You have to get them involved also. You have to get both Congress and state governments, as well as all the congressmen from the border areas, because they're the ones that have the best ideas on how to move forward. We definitely need to have a guest worker program. We have to be able to get people in the roles. I think we have 14 million right now, immigrants that don't have papers to be legally here. So we need to get them in the roles, get them like basically know who they are, so we can get them into the tax rolls. And also with the DACA, I actually have worked and continue to work with a lot of DACA recipients, and it's really, really sad, and it's really, really heartbreaking at times, the hoops that they have to jump through every single year just to renew their status. So we need to overhaul that system, and we need to get DACA recipients should be citizens. They've been here their entire lives. The United States, for the most part, is all they've never known. So they should be citizens. So again, it's one of the things that I keep working on. because I know that this is going to be Chip Roy's bread and butter drill in general, and we have to be able to provide viable alternatives to what he's going to be talking about. So it's a work in progress, but it's going to be comprehensive is what I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. David,
All right.
immigration.
The first thing we need to do is overturn the federal 10-year ban that blocks immigrants who have been deported from entering the country. Because now we're splitting up families, and that's something that's never happened. Kids should not grow up because one in a single parent's household because the government deported one of their parents. Then we need to abolish ICE. That's one of the worst programs I feel that is splitting up families. Then the third, most of the kids at the border that are in asylum and cages, that are in cages, they said the reason that most of them can't be turned back to their parents is because the kids are born in America, the parents are born in Mexico. So America is putting the kids in cages and sending the parents back to Mexico. Now there's no way to find the parents, there's no way to locate the parents. We need to work with the Mexico government. We need to work with the Mexico government to get these kids back to their parents so the parents can raise their kids. Because right now we're splitting up families, and that can be really detrimental to kids growing up. We need to have a better relationship with our bordering countries so we can avoid these crises. And for the immigrants that are already in America, they're already here. They've been here for years. They've been doing jobs. I know some of them been paying taxes for years. Instead of deporting them, make them U.S. citizens. They already been paying taxes. They already been here. They've been working their job. They got 401ks. Make them U.S. citizens. Instead of deporting them, they already showed that they are a
15
viable part of,
seconds.
they already showed that they are a viable part of the community. Let's go ahead and make them full-fledged U.S. citizens.
Thank you, David. Coy, immigration.
Republicans have a gift for spinning rhetoric very well, and they are good at creating boogeymen for things that they want to push. But a lot of undocumented immigrants in this country are not sneaking across the border, a physical border. They're coming here legally, and they are having problems with documentation or with paperwork, or things are expiring. And I don't know about you, but if I was in a foreign country where leaders were threatening to rip me apart from my family, I wouldn't ask for help either. So we need to have a conversation that shifts away from the physical, literal border, because Governor Abbott and his shipping container wall is not doing anything. We need to take the money that we're investing into hurtful programs like ICE and reinvest that money into caseworkers and more social workers, people who are going to be assigned to everybody who enters this country, that helps make sure that everything they need to do it successfully, to immigrate here, to stay here on a visa or a green card, that they have the resources to successfully turn in that paperwork and keep it up to date. This is not some boogeyman. This is people just like you and me who are seeking a better life. And recent polling has suggested that Texans are more concerned with the power grid than they are the non-existent border crisis and immigration influx, because after so many years of the same hurtful rhetoric, they're starting to see that none of it's coming true. And I think we can use this moment to really capitalize on a new path forward. And I hope to be able to do that with a piece of legislation that I'm working on that I would like to introduce in my
15 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coy. All right, so that brings us to the next question, and I think I'm going to go to the audience for this question. I'm seeing a lot of good questions. Some of them are about local issues, and we're going to try to focus on more national issues here for Congress. So I see a question about, well, let me just read it. The Democratic Party has lost thousands and thousands of members or potential voters to the Republican Party. Many of these are working class, especially in the trades. How will you relate to these people, and how will you win them over? And that question goes to Claudia.
Oh, all right, perfect. I think that we need to also reassess the way that we are targeting voters and messaging voters as Democrats. I firmly believe in values-based messaging, which turns your policies and directs them towards the values, like I mentioned earlier, about family, taking care of others, and hard work. And so you need to make sure that you're able to articulate these policies that you have in terms of those values that people as well have and share with you. I also think that we need to focus less on partisan politics for many of these disenfranchised and disillusioned voters who happen to be majority Latino. The issue is that being a Democrat is not good enough. And I, for one, believe in that. Being a Democrat and having a D next to your name isn't a good enough reason for me to vote for you. We must show what we can do via actions now, not actions whenever we're elected or what we'll do when we're elected, but actions now via community organizing, direct action, and mutual aid as a means of getting people electorally involved. A lot of these individuals happen to work within the trades and labor, and I'm happy to have the full support of Texas AFL-CIO, Austin Central Labor Council, and as well as some other local labor unions within Austin and San Antonio that have members located all throughout the district. I believe that we need to make sure that we fully address the issues that a lot of these voters have and the reasons why they're so disenfranchised
15
with
seconds.
Democrats to begin with. And so that's why my campaign prioritizes community organizing, mutual aid, and direct action to get people electorally involved. I can't just go to someone's doorstep and tell them to vote for me. I have to show them why, and that's what I'm doing.
Thank you, Claudia. Sharif, so how you engage? How are you going to engage with voters who may have switched parties?
So the main thing is when somebody switches a party, it's not because they love the other party, because they're disenfranchised by what's going on in the current party. So it's not a very hard sell to get people to come back to the Democratic side if we give them viable candidates. If we give them candidates that know the issues, if we give them candidates that can run a good campaign against Chip Roy is going to go hard right. And the worst thing you can do right now is go hard left and lose all the independents and all the moderates in both the Democrats and the Republicans. So to bring back voters that have left the Democratic Party is you have to show them that, hey, we have sensible ideas, things that we can get done. And then, definitely it's something that we can catch Chip Roy on when he's going really, really hard right. You've got to be, kind of middle of the road and be like, hey, don't listen to this guy because look what he's doing. If you vote for us, we're actually sensible. I mean, after the last 4 years, people have, party fatigue. You're either in this camp or that camp. And that's part of the reason why I'm running a campaign on unity, is we have to unify the people that are tired of so much rhetoric that nothing's getting done in Congress. So we have to get things done to be able to serve your constituents. So yeah, the biggest thing is talking to people like they are people, reaching them where they're at, not telling them where you need to be or where you want them to be, and just talking to them like you're human beings. Reaching them person to person is the biggest thing. Thank you.
Thank you. David.
All right. When it comes to this issue, as a Democratic Party, we kind of fell behind because as most of us candidates have went through the district and talked, the Hispanic community is one of the biggest communities that are leaving the Democratic Party and going to the Republican side. The Hispanic community was the biggest census, was the biggest census growth in the state of Texas. And the Democratic Party hasn't done nothing for that, hasn't done nothing for them. So we have to give them something to actually, hey, I know the Democratic Party hasn't did nothing for you, but if I get if one of us get in office, we can try to bring legislation to the floor to help y'all. When it comes to the African-American community, the African-American community is mad because when Biden first got into office, he was signing executive orders for everybody, and he still hasn't assigned one executive order for the African American community. We have to, and now if y'all see, it's more African Americans running on the Republican side than it is on the Democratic side this year. So we have to pull the people back in. When it comes to the Libertarian and Green Party, we're suing them. Like we're literally suing them to keep them off the ballot. And that is something that, so out of all these angles, we have to come up with a viable solution to bring them back. Because right now as Democrats, we have a lot of stuff going up against us. We got a lot of stuff going up against us. We got to this, like Sharif said, unity, go talk to them and actually like say, hey, we're here for you. I know that we failed on these number of subjects, but if you give me a chance, I will go to Washington and fight for you. Because right now, when they run the polls, we all get them emails about the polls.
15 seconds.
Oh, so okay. So we all get the emails about the polls. The Hispanic community is one of the biggest growths in Texas, and majority of them are voting on the Republican side. Because as we've seen, hate to say it, Trump won the border. It's numbers, it's facts. Trump won the border last election. And Trump is winning most of these cities now because the Republicans are winning most of the cities because we're not involved in these communities. So we have to get out there and we have to get involved.
All right, thank you, David. And Coy, the question comes to you.
So Brene Brown is a social worker and researcher from Houston, Texas, whose work I particularly love. She has a quote in her book, Braving the Wilderness, and she says, "People are hard to hate close up, move in." Those are words that I try to live by every day. I come from a family of Republicans, Trump supporting Republicans, who are not entirely convinced that this election was ethical. And the other day I had a conversation with my dad that led to him coming home and bringing research on whether or not the filibuster was truly racist. And that dialogue allowed us to move past this unimportant piece to say, you know what, it is not a useful piece of legislation. It helps no one. And we were able to have that conversation because we found a way to move past the rhetoric. And I think, yeah, people are tired. They're tired of all the fighting. And if I can get my Republican father to agree with me on an issue, I can get anybody's Republican father to agree with me on an issue, because we're leading this campaign with grace and with compassion. Because if we cannot control other people's actions, we can't control what they say, what they think, what they feel, but we can control how we react. And it's our duty to welcome people in and say, you're still welcome here. When you're ready to move forward with us together, there's a space for you. And having those conversations that are steeped in compassion allows us to get to the root of the issues, which is that no matter what party you're a part of,
15 seconds.
you're hurting. Thank you. No matter what party you're a part of, you're tired, you're scared for your family. And we all want to live a life of dignity and respect. And I believe that I have the ability to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Coy. Ricardo, you get last cut at this question.
So I've read the question like 10 times already, trying to figure out why people are leaving the Democratic Party. And I think that the best answer I can provide is that they're frustrated. I think they're frustrated with a lot of things. The inaction, the fighting, the lack of good candidates. There's so many different reasons why somebody might defect to the other party. And it's trying to figure out, why are they leaving? Why are they going one way or the other? Ultimately, it's up to us to be able to provide some outreach to them. And it's one of the things that I've done with most of my work, doing performance improvement and quality improvement and being in the military. I work with a lot of people that came from different places, had different ideals, had different values. But at the end of it, one of the things that we could come to an agreement with was that, why are we doing things? Coming to that mission statement. Why are we going to do something for the benefit of the community? And I think that's one of the things that we need to look at, is that we've disenfranchised a lot of different demographics. And I can see why they're still frustrated, whether they vote or don't vote, or they vote against us. And it's up to us to be able to break that barrier and actually have those conversations and be able to say, we're not polar opposites. We have a lot more in common than you might think. And getting to those kinds of things in conversations and getting out to where they're at. Being in rural communities, going to the places where frankly, there's a lot of red. Those are the kinds of things that
15
we do
seconds.
as candidates is that we're reaching out and we're having those kinds of conversations to bring them into the fold. And we're not going to see eye to eye on everything, but I think the alternative of obstruction from Chip Roy is not a solution. So I think we can do this better. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ricardo. So I think we can squeeze in one more question from the audience. I really appreciate the questions and certainly the responses from the candidates. So we're going to end the questions on this. We know that younger voters typically have more progressive views on issues such as climate change, LGBTQ rights, wage inequalities, student loan debt, healthcare, et cetera. How will you appeal to the younger voters in the Hill Country? And Sharif, this question goes to you first. Sharif, are you with us? How will you appeal to younger voters?
Was I muted?
Yeah,
I was muted. Happens at least once every soon. Yeah, a lot of great questions that young voters bring up, and it's things that we have to reach them where they're at. LGBTQ rights are under attack almost every single day, which it's a valid concern to have, especially with the community that's always ostracized for whatever reason. Climate change affects all of us. I mean, like some of the candidates have said, we're worried about what's going to happen in 2 days. Are we even going to have lights on? Are we going to have water running? Marijuana, like legalizing marijuana, it's a big one also with, actually it's across all demographics right now. And that's something we have to explore also. So in order to reach those younger voters is, again, you have to first acknowledge that what they're concerned about is valid. And second, we have to acknowledge that we have to do something about it. And three, we have to let them know that, hey, it's something that we can work on. It's not something we're just going to ignore once we get up to Capitol Hill. So yeah, it's being able to listen to the concerns and bring them into the fold and letting them be part of the process.
Thank you. David, appeal to younger voters.
All right. So as some of y'all know or don't know, I'm 29 years old. So I'm kind of young, still in my 20s, but still not in my late 20s, 29. I'm a college student at Texas State. And like I see young voters daily, like when I go to class. And most of them will tell you from the ages of 18 from 18 to like 25. Most of them just want to have secure financial income. Most of them are tired of student debts. Most of them are tired of having to pay these high college prices. Most of them want jobs when they get out of college. Most younger voters just want to make sure that when they finish school or finish trade school, that they will have some type of financial backing, and like they won't just be paying like 30 or 40 years of student debt. And most of my teachers know, pretty much all my teachers know I'm running for Congress. And sometimes they let the students ask me questions. And most students say, what are you gonna do about student debt? Student debt. Most of them are afraid of going into debt. And that's how we're gonna get younger voters. They wanna know, what are we gonna do about student debt? And when they finish college, they don't wanna be in $60,000 of debt just for a 4-year degree.
Okay, thank you, David. Coy. Coy, are you on mute?
I got muted, sorry. We'll try that again. So I started with $115,000 of student debt after my undergrad. It's been 6 years and I am down to 105. I've never had a job that gives me good insurance. And when it did give me insurance, it was just highway robbery to cover things that may never happen to me. I'm insuring myself and betting against the fact that I survive. I've never had a job that's paid me more than maybe $12 an hour. I wake up every morning and I think, is this all there is? Is this my life forever? That I'm never going to be able to own a home or start a family because I can't even get out of the weight of crippling debt. I don't need to reach young voters. I am a young voter and I live that experience every day. And the ache of never knowing if tomorrow is going to be okay and not knowing if the planet that we're going to inherit in 30 years is even going to be hospitable, it keeps me up at night. Man, I can speak to it because I feel it in my heart and I feel it in my bones every night. So we're going to go out and we're going to speak to these young voters and we're going to tell them that I'm running this race to bring young voices to Congress because we are a majority of the country. If not, we are very close to being the majority generation as millennials and Gen Z, but we have so few representatives our age in Congress, and that has to change. And that is why I'm running this race. Thank you.
Thank you, Coy. Ricardo, your take.
Sure. I mentioned earlier, I went to UC Berkeley. I don't think you get more liberal and more progressive than that university. One of the things that brought me there was the great professors that are there. They're subject matter experts in their field. You got Bob Reich, you got Secretary of Energy Granholm. Those are the teachers that I had. In terms of having those kinds of ideas, I'm not against those ideas. I'm not against legalizing marijuana. I'm not against Medicare for all. But I think that the difficulty comes with young voters is having them understand that there's limitations to what one can do. And that's one of the things that I won't do. I won't promise something I won't deliver. And I think that's difficult with very progressive ideas, is that we have to meet. I'm a pragmatic progressive. And that means that I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for progress, and mediating that with some of the constituents and some of the younger voters that are very progressive. As I've told them before, I'm not against that. It's just that we don't have the support to get Medicare for all. I mentioned voting rights. If we can't do that, how are we going to be doing some of the more progressive things that require a lot of support on a bipartisan basis? For me, it's about working not just with Democrats, it's working with Republicans on a bipartisan basis, and not get everything that I want like a Christmas list. It's getting what we need, and it's going to be slow and it's going to be frustrating that's slow, but it's going to be progress.
15.
And it's going to be a lot better than what Chip Roy has delivered to us, which is nothing. So that's the way I reach out to young voters. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ricardo. And Claudia, you get last cut at this question.
Last but not least, so at the ripe age of 27 years old, I am the youngest candidate running for TX21, both in the Democratic and Republican primaries. So as a young voter who has the endorsements of Austin Young Democrats, Black Austin Democrats, University Democrats over at UT Austin, and young local leaders like Trevor Newman and Nicolette Ardiente. I am proud to be able to say that young voters aren't some demographic that we must talk at or listen to or direct or correct. They are a demographic that needs to lead. We have to be able to integrate young voters into every facet of our campaigns and in our bill making and development process. It's very important that we fully engage and give these individuals the powers, tools, and resources necessary in order to be able to develop and write policy, to provide community direct mutual aid, and to carry out these ideals that they want to see so heavily done. I think that we also need to make sure to be inclusive within our language. A lot of the times we kind of pit like young voters and cast them aside as like this entire demographic that's like surprising to work with, when in reality, most of our mobilization efforts across our county Democratic parties is young voters. Young voters lead
15
everything it is
seconds.
that we do. And so we need to be able to make sure that we respect that by giving them a seat at the table, not just asking them for advice on the side. And so that's how we win over our young voters, is by making sure that we fully encompass them in everything that we do.
Thank you, Claudia. All right, we have come to closing comments from each of our candidates, and we're going to continue the rotation that we began. And so that means that David Anderson, I invite you to give us final thoughts tonight.
All right. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and having us. And the one thing I would like to leave y'all with, I've talked to Thomas Wakely, who has endorsed me, the 2016 nominee. I've talked to Joseph Copper yesterday morning. I've talked to the Wendy Davis camp, and all of them said the same thing. The district is not the same as they ran in it. If we need to flip votes. All the candidates got the numbers. We need at least 80,000 Republicans to flip from Republican to Democrat to win the general. We have to, and if we can't flip votes, it's going to be a bloodbath in November. No matter who wins the primary. If the person who wins the primary cannot flip votes, Chippewa is going to have a bloodbath in November. I mean, you can't be afraid to talk to Republicans, because as we know, as the last poll showed, majority of our Democratic candidates from Bethel down to some state reps are all losing. I know some of y'all don't want to hear that, but even Bethel, that all of us look up to, is losing in the polls. So we got to be able to flip votes, because if we flip votes in this district, that will help all the state candidates in the general election also. So I'm just leaving out with that this last comment, that whoever wins the primary has to be able to flip votes and can't be scared to talk to Republicans, because if you are, it's going to be a bloodbath for Chip Roy, and he's going to just wipe the floor with us in the general. And my name is David Anderson. Thank you for having me out tonight.
Thank you, David. Corey Branscombe, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you all so much for having me. Looking at the website for the Hill Country County Dems, 8 of our 10 counties in Texas 21 are a part of this coalition. Yet the last 2 Democrats that we've run in this seat have been from major cities. We need to run candidates who share our lived experiences, and that's why I'm here. As a high school teacher, I lived by my open door policy. I had unfettered access for all of my students because I believe that is the way to maintain healthy leadership. And I guarantee that I will take that with me as your next congressman. I will always have an open door for you. And right now, the current Democratic leadership in Texas, they, for some reason, have decided to cast us aside as rural communities. But I firmly believe that rural communities are the road to victory in Texas. And my Republican parents call me the Republican whisperer, and I am ready to take that skill set to have those uncomfortable conversations, push past the rhetoric, and get to the root of the issues, which is that we all want to live a happy, peaceful life. And if you send me into this primary, into the general, I promise you, I'm going to do that for you. I'm going to flip those Republican and independent votes, and I'm going to give you the representation that you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Ricardo Villarreal, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for this opportunity and your time. The San Antonio Express News endorsed me this morning. And the reason for that is because they know that Chip Roy is running on healthcare freedom, which is anti-vax and anti-mask, and I'm very opposite to that. He runs on veteran issues, but he votes against the ALS Act, which disproportionately affects veterans. He takes photo ops with veterans and Border Patrol and law enforcement, but votes against their some of the things that they need. He's going to be running on immigration. I have plenty of experience in immigration. I was born in the border. I know about that. My mom's a Mexican immigrant. He's going to be running on Title 42 enforcement and against any pathway for citizenship, while I'm doing the opposite. He's running on taking back our schools, which is anti-critical race theory and anti-LGBTQIA rights for children, against banning books. I'm quite the opposite. I have two kids, a 6 and an 8-year-old, in a very diverse, it's over 90% diverse in terms of their school. Those are the kinds of values that I have. And that's why Chip Roy doesn't want to face me. I am the candidate he doesn't want to face. So I want to thank you for your time and your support. Again, my name is Ricardo Villarreal, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Claudia Zapata, it's been a pleasure having you tonight.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Let's make things very clear. A loud, young brown woman is the last thing that Chip wants to go against. In addition to that, TX21 needs someone who's not going to allow Chip to dictate the issues that we talk about. That's why I'm running on issues that Chip refuses to ignore, such as food insecurity, with over 115,000 food insecure families within his district. Real County ranks within the top 10 counties in all of Texas for some of the highest rates of food insecurity. That's why I'm fighting for clean land, air, and water. In terms of protecting areas like Honey Creek, stopping Vulcan construction out at White Ranch, and making sure that we draw attention to air quality and water quality issues. That's why I'm also running to talk about the fact that we need more preventative and routine healthcare clinic access within rural Texas. We have some of the highest maternal mortality rates and infant mortality rates in all of Central Texas. And these are the issues that Chip refuses to discuss. And I will not let Chip or any Republican dictate what it is that we talk about in this race in the general. We will talk about the issues that have gone untalked about and unnoticed for so long. And that's what I plan on doing. And that's the kind of fighter that TX21 deserves. And I am so proud to have the support of an endorsement of Mary Street Wilson. She has been a lovely and wonderful mentor and supporter this entire time. And I'm very happy to have the support of Wendy Davis as well. I can't wait to see what good trouble we can get into together. And I kindly and humbly ask for your support to be your next congresswoman for TX21. Thank you.
Okay, Sharif Gassis, you have the privilege of closing tonight. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for Hill Country Democrats for hosting us tonight. A lot of the counties are very, very rural, so we do have to reach out to them. And as far as going against Chip Roy, I'm actually one of the people that is controlling the conversation. He takes a lot of his cues from me, honestly, from Twitter, probably because I was the second person to join the race right after Scott Strom, and he's been keeping tabs on me. And I know for a fact that he knows that I'm a threat to his campaign. If I make it to the general, I'm going to give him the biggest fight that he can have. So that's the biggest thing, is unifying all the Democrats and making sure that we can reach moderate Republicans, independents, and libertarians. I've gotten a lot of people from all that spectrum to say, hey, we don't like this guy. We definitely want to vote for you. Get him out of office. He is deeply, deeply unpopular in the district. On paper, it's plus 24 Republicans, but in reality, 24% of Republicans right now are undecided, and we have to reach those Republican voters. Whenever it comes to facing in the debates, you definitely want to have me going up against Chip Roy, because I can think really quickly on my feet on the issues that matter and the issues that people across the district are really looking to. So I thank you very much for showing up tonight. We do have a fireside chat that Ricardo hosts, and David and I and Claudia sometimes shows up for Sundays. If you didn't get to ask your questions, come on by and we'll answer some more questions on Sunday nights. But yeah, let's go out there. And as Kevin said on the chat, and when I met them and we're doing trash pickup, let's fight like hell. Let's fight like wolves and make sure that whoever is the nominee, that we all support him and that we get Chip Roy out of office. because we need to flip this district to be able to control Congress still in 2022. Thank you guys, and you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Sharif. So I just want to quickly mention that there is a sixth candidate in this race, Scott Sturm. He wanted to be tonight, but he is a paramedic and he is on a 90-hour shift, so it was not possible. So you may want to look at his candidacy as well. But certainly thanks to the candidates who did join. Thanks to everyone in the audience. It's been my privilege to host this tonight. I don't think I have to tell anyone how important this race is, how ineffective Chip Roy has been representing most of the people in this district. Unfortunately, there can only be one winner in this race, but I am extremely encouraged by all the candidates we've heard from tonight, and I hope that regardless of who wins this race for our nominee for Congressional District 21, all of them will remain involved and run again for this office or for other offices. So thank you all very much for being here, and good night from Blanco County.
Take care, guys. God bless.
Hey.
Thank you.
Laura, I think you can, yeah, you can stop the recording now. Thank you. I see a couple questions about recording this. So it was recorded. We'll have it posted on the Blanco County Democrats webpage tomorrow. The fireside chats, I did not catch the link for that. Did anyone? I think if you go, Sharif said he is instrumental in those fireside chats. So I'm sure if you were to go to his website, you could probably find information about how to join that. Okay. Over and out. Thank you all.